Good afternoon, Fantasy World. Welcome to the Fantasy Roundup on bet.NOLA.com. Zach Ewing alongside Spencer, the Guru Urquhart, with you on this Tuesday of Thanksgiving week. We are rapidly approaching fantasy football playoffs, so it's getting real, Spencer.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that time of year, crunch time. It's gonna be fun, man. I had a good week this past week, setting up for the stretch runs. Hopefully, keep the momentum going heading into the playoffs.
I had, in my biggest cash league, I had the most frustrating Monday night experience, which I will explain a little later, but I'm going to save that. I'm just going to tease that. In the meantime, we will invite you to leave your comments, your questions. We'll get to them as they come in on your lineups or your waiver wire pickups or whatever you want to talk about. We will also get to our top scorers from last week, our MVPs from last week, our waiver wire targets, DFS values, and our sleepers for week 12. So a jam-packed 30 to 45 minutes or so coming at you here on the Fantasy Roundup on bet.NOLA.com. We are brought to you by the Caesar Sportsbook, and we'd like to invite you to go ahead and download your Caesar Sportsbook app. Expect mobile betting to go live sometime around the first of the year, sometime in January. You can go to NOLA.com/Caesars, download your app, get your deposit bonus. Don't even have to deposit any money yet if you don't want to. But if you do, you'll be 100% ready to bet, and you can get that bonus in your account as well, that $100 bonus, all by going to NOLA.com/Caesars. So go ahead and do that. And when you're done, come back, drop us a fantasy question, hit like, hit subscribe, and stay with us for the next 45 minutes or so. Spencer, let's start with the top scorers from week 11. And there were some big-time scorers this week. A lot of them coming from that Sunday night game between the Chargers and Steelers, which, especially on the Chargers side, just huge points everywhere. So let's start there with the top scoring quarterbacks from week 11, and it is Justin Herbert of the Chargers at 34.28 points. And Aaron Rodgers just behind him for the Packers. He had kind of a coming out. And then Jalen Hurts, he's becoming a staple in the top 5.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, this is the top 3 weren't too surprising there. I figured Aaron Rodgers would bounce back in a good matchup against Minnesota. Herbert, really nice to see him at the top again. He had a tough one against Pittsburgh on paper, but he exploited it and actually had one of his best games of the year. Helped me out in a bunch of leagues. Hurts really hurt the Saints in that game. Man. He just ran all over them. That was kind of interesting. I wasn't expecting him to do quite that good. And then Cam Newton and Kirk Cousins, I figured Kirk would do good in a potential shootout with Rodgers. But Cam, man, I was saying they would go get Cam last week, and those that did, bravo, there you go. He had a really nice game and showed his former head coach Ron Rivera that he still got it.
And I mean, anytime a quarterback gets you a 20-yard touchdown run, as Cam did in the first half, he's gonna have a good day. Interesting question here, though. Where do you rank Cam for the rest of the season? Is he your top 10 quarterbacks, your top 15 quarterbacks? Where do you slot him?
Yeah, he's close to top 10 at this point, considering his running ability. I would say he's probably more like top 15. I think he'll have some dud weeks mixed in moving forward. I don't think he'll be super consistent, but he does have that rushing floor, so I think I'll say top 12. I'll go top 12. And
so he's in streamer territory in a normal league.
Correct. Yeah. He's a high-end streamer in single QB leagues, and at this point, I'd say a must start in superflex formats. And yeah.
I mean, I think I have him in a superflex league, and I think that's the way to go with him. Top scoring running backs for week 11. And this one is just by far the biggest week of the year, frankly. Jonathan Taylor with his 5 touchdowns, 53.4 fantasy points. 53 points. I mean, if you were facing him and survived, let us know in the comments, because that would be or if you had him and somehow lost, because it's just fantastic. 5 touchdowns for Jonathan Taylor. No other player has even topped 48 points in a week this year. So I think Derrick Henry had a 47.7. Tyreek Hill had like a 47.6 one week. So Jonathan Taylor, the highest score in a game by more than 5 points. And then Austin Eckler, most weeks he'd be your headliner, 4 touchdowns in Sunday Night Football and 6 catches and all that. And he's a distant second on this list. But all of these names are guys who are must-start RB1s every single week.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, this was a really nice week for running backs. A lot of workhorses proved their worth and did their thing, showing that it's essential to still take running backs early. You got to have those anchor workhorses. CMC getting his season back on track. DeAndre Swift, Joe Mixon been pretty consistent this year. Man, Eckler, what a game! He was giving Taylor a run for his money. He's got 4 touchdowns, but Taylor was just astronomical there, 53.4. Like you said, Zach, the top scorer of the year. I mean, just incredible, man. I had him in a league in which I scored over 200 points for the week. So, yeah, big ups to JT, man. That dude is a machine.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you were facing Taylor, probably the only way you won is if you had a couple of these other guys. You had Eckler and Mixon, or you had the guy we're about to talk about next, Justin Jefferson and Joe Mixon, or something like that. I mean, that was your only hope. The top-scoring wide receiver was indeed LSU product Justin Jefferson of the Vikings. A big week of 37.2. Devontae Adams. A couple of surprises on this list, though, with Elijah Moore, who's been getting more and more target share and has done really good things with it. And then Darnell Mooney of the Bears also.
Right. Yeah, good to see Elijah Moore keeping this up. He had a really good week a couple weeks back, and he's showing that even though he's a Jet, he can produce. He's been doing good things. He's coming from that Ole Miss tree of wideouts. So DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown both said this kid's special. He's the real deal. And sure enough, he's proven that. And then Deontay, just a target hog, great for fantasy. Mooney, another nice one. He took advantage of Allen Robinson being out of the lineup. And Andy Dalton looking like it was going to suit up Thursday. I think having Dalton more of a pocket passer is actually good news for Mooney. And then the top 2 just studs, man. Jefferson and Adams, money in the bank.
We're going to talk about waiver wire targets here in a minute, but is Mooney a guy you're looking at this week if he's out on the wire?
Oh, most definitely. Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's picked up in most leagues. I know he's gone in pretty much all mine, but yeah, if he's still floating, go get him.
I think he's available in one of my leagues is why I said that, and I put a bid in for him already. And so there are a few out there. He's probably, 50 to 60% ownership, but that means there's probably, there's 40 to 50% of leagues where he is available. And some of those are your 6-team leagues and 8-team leagues, but some of them are also, at least a few of them, your more traditional leagues. So moving on to tight ends, another old name at the top of the list, Zach Ertz of the Cardinals with a couple of touchdown catches. And then Kelsey and Waller do what they do. Mark Andrews does what he does. And then Adam Troutman of the Saints, really the only Saint who had a good day on Sunday, except that he didn't have a good day because he had the high ankle sprain at the end and is out 4 to 6 weeks, or basically probably the rest of the year.
Yeah, that's a shame for Troutman, man. He was really doing his thing in this. He made some great catches and then got hurt there. Just tough to watch. It just fits the theme of the Saints. Just can't catch a break. Basically, like the 49ers from last year, everybody on offense seems to get hurt. It's just tough, the top 3, no surprises, but Zach Ertz at the top, that surprised me. I was not expecting that at all. The backup quarterback and Colt McCoy really leaned on his tight end though. Here, Zach Ertz had a huge game, and that just kind of came out of left field. He had been just a low end tight end 1, but he shows that he's still got a little juice left.
Yeah, and in fact, I was just checking the Saints injury report just came out a couple of minutes ago, and you mentioned Adam Troutman not on the injury report, which means he's apparently been put on IR and still did not practice. Alvin Kamara did not practice for the Saints today, so not looking good for him for Thursday. He has one more chance to get out on the practice field tomorrow, perhaps. I really, when it first came out, it looked like a short-term thing, like, oh, hey, he might miss the Tennessee game, but he'll be back. But now we're going on possibly 3 weeks with no Alvin Kamara for this offense, and we see what it does to him.
Yeah, they tried to play it coy close to the vest, not really say what it was, but from what I heard, it's an MCL sprain, and that can be kind of super serious, but it's a week-to-week injury, and now we're seeing that. Yeah, it's not something that's just going to heal up super quick. It's an injury that takes time to heal, and it just goes to show, Kamara, he's great and all, but I don't know, is he that true workhorse? I'm not sure. Like, he doesn't see. Although even Derrick Henry got hurt this year. It's just it's just when you handle that big of a workload that he's asked to handle, it's just, I mean, we see it with Christian McCaffrey. When guys get asked to handle that many carries, a lot of times it leads to injury, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like gambling on the NFL or college football for that matter. In fantasy football, there are no sure things. Just like Derrick Henry seems like the surest of the sure, and he got hurt. I guess except for Tom Brady, he seems to never get hurt, at least not since the torn ACL back in 08 it was, or 09.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's about all for him. Hey, you're watching the Fantasy Roundup on bet.nola.com, brought to you by Caesar Sportsbook. That is Spencer the Guru. I'm Zach Ewing, and we are here with you for another 30 minutes or so. Drop us your questions in the comments. Give us a like, subscribe to the page, and we will get to your comments as we go. Our fantasy stars for Week 11. Spencer, it's funny. We talk about Jonathan Taylor having the week of all weeks, and neither one of us picked Jonathan Taylor as our star. I guess it just went without saying that he was so great. We went elsewhere.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I picked him before, I'm pretty sure. So I was just like, I mean, yeah, he would have been well worthy again. But I wanted to show someone else some love here. And that was Justin Jefferson, who was actually on that team that I mentioned earlier with Taylor. I had both of them that scored over 200 points. So I wanted to give Jets his due, because he had almost as good of a day there. 8 for 169 and 2 tutties. I mean, he is so talented. It's amazing. Like, I mean, with LSU, everyone was so enamored with Jamar Chase that we kind of forget that Justin Jefferson was also such an integral piece to that national championship team. And he's showing that was just, yeah, there was some elite guys, elite talents, and just love to see it. Love to see it. I wish I had more shares.
You look back at the skill position players on that 2019 LSU team: Joe Burrow, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Terrace Marshall. I mean, it just on and on and on and on. It's just an amazing collection of talent. No wonder they went on to win a national championship pretty much with ease. My fantasy star and my fantasy rant coming in the same package. Austin Eckler of the Chargers saved my butt on Sunday night, or so I thought. So I have a league, and this is why I went with Eckler instead of Taylor, because he saved me. I have a league that's higher scoring than most. The yardage is a little skewed. You get bonuses for long touchdowns. It just, instead of, say, 120 points being a good week or 130 points, more like 200 points is a good week. 200 points will usually win it for you, but not always. So that's sort of the scale we're working with. Well, I was down by 35 points with Eckler to go, and my opponent had the Bucs defense. So I need a huge game out of Eckler. But scoring 35 points in this league is not totally out of the question like it is in most leagues where you need the best week of the year. It's possible. So Eckler goes out, does his thing, 4 touchdowns, 6 catches, 115 total yards. Just amazing, 41 points in a PPR league. In my league, it was worth 56 points. Okay, so I go from down 35, do the math, to up 21. I'm up actually 221 to exactly 200. And all I've got to do is fade the Bucs defense on Monday night. And of course, it's a good matchup for the Bucs, right? So it's possible that I could get run down, but not totally likely. I'm thinking as long as they don't get a touchdown, I'm probably okay. We do have bonuses for holding teams under 200 yards passing or 100 yards rushing, and shutout bonuses and all that. But it's not too easy to score with defense. So anyway, Bucs have 2 points at halftime that they only got on a late fumble recovery. So they have 2 points. Then they get a couple of picks in the third quarter, early fourth quarter. They got 6 points. I'm still at the point where I'm good. I've got a 15-point cushion. The Giants hadn't racked up a ton of yards, but they had enough to where the guy was going to get like 10 bonus points for yardage. But I had a 15-point lead. It's the last 2 minutes of the game, and I thought, even if they take a sack or something, I'm still good here. I have a bonus here as long as they don't get that pick 6. And so that's all I'm looking for, is don't get that pick 6. Well, Giants didn't throw a pick 6, but as you may recall, if you were watching this game and this is the only reason you'd be watching it, is for fantasy or gambling purposes at the end. But Daniel Jones took sacks on both of his last 2 dropbacks. Okay, he didn't fumble or anything. He took 2 sacks, and you think, all right, that's 2 more points, but that's 8 points plus the 10 bonus points, 18 points. You're trying to, you're always doing the math in your head. All right, I win by 3. I survived. That was too closer than I wanted it to be, but I got it. Thank you, Austin Eckler. You are my fantasy star of the week. Well, The 2 sacks, one of them was for an 11-yard loss, which, come on, Daniel Jones, step up in the pocket at least, or something. 11 yards. Next one was for 7 yards. So the Giants lost 18 yards in the NFL. Sack yards count as yards passing. So the Giants go from 167 yards to exactly 149 yards passing. And that is another tier for us. You get 3 bonus points for giving up less than 200 yards passing. You get 6 bonus points for giving up less than 150. So by that 1 yard, my opponent gets 3 more bonus points, and we tied. Like,
oh my God.
How do you know? And in this league, there's no tiebreaker. I would have won the tiebreaker. No matter what it would have been. I had the highest score. I had the highest bench score. I had the most bench points. Any tie, I still would have won, except for in this league, we just call them ties and move on. So you talk about snatching a tie from the jaws of victory. It was just.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, I stormed around my house for like 15 minutes, and my wife is like, "Will you get over it?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not going to get over it. Not until I can rant about it, at least."
Right, yeah, those stink, man. I've been there, especially in the playoffs. Oh my gosh, I've had some heartbreakers, man. Especially with this team defenses, man. I'm almost to the point where I don't just assume play with individual defensive players. Team defenses are so frustrating. They can end up, if they help you, it's like cool, but if they hurt you, it's like a stupid defense. It's like a kicker. It's like, oh,
yeah.
Why?
Well, and the worst part about it is defenses, you can't, like most players, you can kind of keep track of how many points they're getting as you go. Defenses, especially when you start getting into yardage totals and stuff, you can't always, unless you literally have the box score open in front of you. And so I thought I had won. And then, 5 minutes after the game ends, I just go check the app to make sure, and showing a tie. And what the hell happened? What happened? And so then I go to check the box score. Oh, he got 6 points for yards. No. They had more than 150 yards passing. Go back and check. They lost 18 yards on the 2 sacks. And I mean, again, it's the regular season. I might still be okay, but I have the 3rd most points in that league, and I'm now 4-6-1. Where if you're 5-6, you still have a chance to make it. Now at 4-6-1, I pretty much am probably gonna have to run the table now to make the playoffs. So it's fantasy football. Sometimes it's just not very fun.
Yeah, thankfully I've had more triumphs than defeats this year. I'm having a pretty nice year. I just hope I can carry it into the playoffs, because I've been one year where I made the playoffs, I think, in 8 out of 9 leagues, but only won 1 championship because the playoffs just did not treat me well. But hopefully this will be one where I can carry over. Last year I didn't make the playoffs in as many leagues. I missed it in like 3 or 4 leagues, but I made it in like 8 leagues, and I ended up winning 3 ships. So I'll probably prefer that, because then you got more money, more championships.
That's right. Yeah, you always want the championships, but the only way you get them is get in the playoffs and give yourself a chance. I actually get less mad about. Well, I shouldn't say that. The playoff defeats are brutal, but once all you can do is get there.
That's a good point.
And that's what this is all about at this stage. We're going into week 12. There's an extra week now. In most leagues, the playoffs are now weeks 15, 16, and 17 instead of 14, 15, 16. And so that means week 14 is now the last week of the regular season. It means we have 3 weeks left. So if you're trying to make a push, leave us a comment. We'll try to get to you a trade question. And most trade deadlines have passed, I guess, but a waiver question or a start-sit question, and we will get to you as they come in. Speaking of waivers, our Week 12 waiver targets here on the Fantasy Roundup. Spencer, what do you have for us?
All right, yeah, I mean, there wasn't a whole lot on the waiver wire this week, especially for our requirement of being under 30% owned. There just was not much there. So to start off, quarterback, Taylor Heineke, I think, has a chance to carry over his momentum. He's been playing pretty well lately. Against the Seahawks on Monday night, who just seem like they're just in a complete tailspin right now. They don't know what they're doing. So I'm thinking Heineke could do well again. Tevin Coleman at running back, Michael Carter out the next few weeks with an ankle sprain, I believe. So Coleman, just by default, could get some looks. I'm not super excited about it by any means, but he'll be the primary back there, they're thinking. So I would maybe give him a shot if you're desperate at running back. And then Des Fitzpatrick, this one I think super intriguing. He's always in basically no leagues. I don't know if that's zero. It might be like 0.001 or something. I'm sure some deep dynasty owner has him out there. But for redraft purposes, he's just floating. He's there. Had a nice week this week. It was overall a rough week for the Tennessee offense. He's young, A.J. Brown's banged up. Julio Jones is on IR. Somebody's got to catch passes there with their running game not being what it once was. And I'm thinking Fitzpatrick might have the most upside out of those young guys there in that receiving corps.
Yeah, it's interesting you picked Tevin Coleman there, and I think let's dive into that just for a minute, because one of my waiver wire targets is Ty Johnson of the Jets, who, with Michael Carter out, Ty Johnson tends to get most of the targets, or at least that's how it's been. Why do you prefer Coleman to Ty Johnson?
I guess because with Coleman, it has has a more stable floor for touches and the red zone. Not that the Jets get in the red zone a whole lot, but with Joe Flacco, they were moving the ball at least. So I'm thinking if Coleman he can probably see like 12 to 15 carries, might see a couple targets. If he finds the end zone, that's a decent day. I mean, that's a kind of performance you could put in your flex and not feel too bad about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I think Coleman has a higher floor. My waiver wire targets, Ty Johnson is at the top of the list. He is, to me, his floor is still pretty high in a PPR format, because he's going to get those 3 to 4 catches every week where, 3 or 4 catches, okay, even if they only total 15 yards, you've got 5.5 points right there, plus whatever rushing he does. And you're, like you say, he's not going to hit it big most likely unless you get that touchdown, but you're in pretty good shape at 6 or 7 points. So the rest of my waiver wire targets, I like Rondale Moore of the Cardinals. He's still floating out there in too many leagues for me. He's a talented guy. He had 11 catches on Sunday against the Seahawks, and part of that is Colt McCoy's the quarterback, and he's just kind of dinking and dunking, and Rondale Moore's the guy. But clearly the Cardinals want to get the ball in his hands. He didn't really bust any. He had a weird line. It was like 11 catches for 40 yards or something like that. But, he's talented enough to where if he gets the ball 6-7 times a game, he is going to bust something at some point. And so you want him in your lineup when that happens. And then my other one's Cedric Wilson. This is more of a streaming option, but I may actually pick him up in a couple of leagues, or try to, just because I need receivers because of some injuries. I have Amari Cooper in one league. He's going to be out Thursday with COVID. And then CeeDee Lamb is also hurting out. And so the Cowboys' top 2 wideouts are out. Somebody's got to get the ball in what figures to be a pretty high-scoring game Thursday afternoon against the Raiders. Cedric Wilson, he had a couple drops in the second half against the Chiefs, didn't show up real well. But to me, somebody's got to get those targets.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think Wilson could be a nice DFS dart throw flex, deep flex, for any flex, like regular leagues, because he's, going to see those targets like that with Cooper out. Rondale, I know he did pretty well, man. He's just hard to trust. He saw it off well, and I mean, he might be worth a bench spot. It's just hard for me to trust him, especially if Nuke Hopkins can come back there. And Ty Johnson could be good for PPR, seeing the main receptions. I don't know. Rondale Moore he burned me early. It's hard for me to go back.
I had him early and dropped him too, and ended up picking up Rashad Bateman, who's been more consistent. But I really think in deeper leagues, both of them ought to be owned. So if Rondale Moore is out there and you need some receiver help or some depth, or just as a throw in case you have an injury problem or a COVID problem, I mean, he's a guy that I would go after for sure. This is the Fantasy Roundup on bet.nola.com. We're going to turn our attention to DFS. The way this week works is you have 2 different main DFS slates on DraftKings or FanDuel or SuperDraft or whatever it is that you play. One of them is the Thanksgiving Day slate, and so you got 3 games to choose from. You got Bears-Lions in the morning, probably not taking a whole lot from that. Then you have Cowboys-Raiders in the afternoon, and then, of course, Bills-Saints in the evening. And so that's one of your slates. And then you have your regular Sunday afternoon slate where everything but the Sunday night game, all the noon games and the 3 p.m. games go into a basket, and you can pick guys from that. So having said that, Spencer, it looks like all your guys are from the Sunday slate here. But tell us, so really some extreme values you have here. I mean, none of these guys above 5,500.
Right. Yeah, I tried to, and I was looking at it, like, yeah, let me find some deep dive values here. Since my last week, I kind of missed on the Joe Burrow. I was thinking they just ran all over the Raiders. That was kind of surprising, but so I was like, I'm gonna try to find some deep values here that could really pop off, and if they do, it could win you some weeks. I'll start with this Broncos stack I got here. I think Teddy Bridgewater and Jerry Jeudy profiles a really nice stack against the Chargers, being that they'll, one, be playing from behind most likely, and two, the Chargers pass defense really got exposed on Sunday night. Big Ben, of all people, was able to mount a big comeback. I know the Chargers held them off, but dang, if it wasn't for Herbert's big night, they probably would have blown that game. And I mean, we had a Big Ben. I mean, he's nothing special. So that's encouraging to me for Bridgewater. I think he'll have a nice bounce back. Him and Judy should do really well. Miles Sanders, I like it, running back. He's should be the primary back again. You know, Jordan Howard likely out, so that should get him even more opportunities going against, I believe, the Giants, who are just they stink. So, and then Dan Arnold at tight end. I put Arnold here. A lot of people are probably mad at him after last week's goose egg, but a lot of times guys bounce back after a goose egg. I wouldn't expect another bad one. He gets Atlanta this week, so that should be a nice get right spot.
Yeah, I still like Dan Arnold. I mean, listen, if you're going down below tight end 8, tight end 9, you're going to have inconsistency. I mean, sometimes these guys are just not going to do real well. Even up at tight end 5, tight end 6, like Kyle Pitts has been real inconsistent. You know, obviously you're starting him most weeks, but you can't count on him to score 12, 15 points like you can the Kelce's and Wallers and Mark Andrews. I mean, those are the guys who you can count on. But other than that, you're really just kind of looking for value in this situation.
Yes, indeed. And we just had some breaking news come in.
Okay, hit us with it.
Oh, Adrian Peterson released by the Titans with Hilliard. Hilliard took his spot on the active roster. Dontrell Hilliard, the running back that did pretty well for him last week. So the AP run did not last. That was those that spent their fab on him. Well, you whiffed.
And I got burned a little bit. I picked up Deonta Foreman and had to start him because Cordero Patterson was hurt. And this was ended up in the tie. And Deonta Foreman really didn't get the ball much. And I was a little surprised how much Adrian Peterson got it. And then Dontrell Hilliard out of Tulane got the ball a lot. Moving forward, you know, assuming Derrick Henry will not be back until the NFL playoffs, for the rest of the fantasy season and fantasy playoffs, which Titans running back do you prefer if you have to go that route? Obviously, you avoid it if you can.
Right. Yeah, I guess I'm still going Foreman and hoping although this Hilliard guy might be it. I honestly don't know. McNichols could be back too. He was out this week with a concussion, so maybe McNichols for PPR. Probably McNichols.
Yeah.
He's going to get the receptions, and then Foreman and the other dude Hilliard are probably going to cancel each other out.
It's not one of those situations that you really want to rely on, like I said, but if you have to because of injuries or there's a couple of bye weeks left or whatever else, Foreman, I feel conflicted because I still feel like Foreman has done the most with the opportunities he's gotten. He just hasn't seen the ball that much. And so I don't know if that's, hey, he's not a good pass blocker. We can't trust him in that situation. And so that's why he's not in there as much as these other guys. But when he has gotten the ball, he's been more productive with it than any of the other guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had a good week. I thought he was going to have another good one this week. He had the good week, but in week 10, and didn't carry it over. But he could maybe still be okay. It's just his track record, though, is not very promising, though. So, I wouldn't bank on anything too big. It's amazing how many backfields have just gone to complete this abyss. It's in the abyss. It's just these backfields that are like the Bills, the Jets, the Titans, the 49ers that you don't know what to do.
Just don't even want to touch them. I mean, like you can't, you don't want to rely on any of those guys because you just know you're going to pick the wrong one. And even some of the guys you can count on are getting carries siphoned away. Antonio Gibson loses carries every week. Leonard Fournette, we knew that was going to happen, loses carries every week. So it's not real great out there unless you have one of the real stars. Moving on to my DFS picks, I went with one of your guys there, Elijah Moore from your. I guess you didn't pick Elijah Moore. We had him in the leaders, but I mean for 5,600, I'm looking at Elijah Moore again against the Texans. It's a good matchup for the Jets. Figures to be a game where they might put up some points. And then I have a Patriots stack, Mac Jones and Hunter Henry, both facing the Titans. The Titans have been filleted by tight ends this year more often than not. And so you can get that combo for less than 10,000 at DraftKings. Mac Jones for 5,400, Hunter Henry for 4,500. Henry was one guy who didn't really get in on the act for the Patriots against the Falcons last week, but I do think that there is a possibility there that Mac looks for Hunter Henry more and more against that Titans defense. And then I did pick one from the Thursday slate, and I actually picked him from the Bears-Lions game. David Montgomery seems underpriced to me at $6,000. The Bears will try to run the ball against the Lions, especially if Andy Dalton is playing. I guess really if either guy's playing, it's just Justin Fields may do some of the running himself. But if Dalton is starting, the Bears are going to give the ball to Montgomery a ton, I feel like. And he could really have a big day. He was back from injury last week. He was okay. Didn't have a real big day. But I could see on Thanksgiving morning David Montgomery kind of taking his star turn again.
Right. Yeah, he's done well against the Lions before. Super exploitable matchup. Yeah, I think he does well, very much so. The thing with Henry, I mean, he could do well. It's just Jonnu Smith's back. If there was no Jonnu Smith, I'd feel really good about Henry. But it's just with him there, it's kind of, at least Henry's the red zone guy. He's got that going for him. It's just kind of annoying when you got a second tight end in the picture that's plays a lot.
Yeah, you talk about the Patriots. You talk about backfields being abysses, and the Patriots have always been like that under Bill Belichick. And now their tight end situation is too. Where you're just like, God, I mean, even their wide receiver situation, you don't know for sure whether it's going to be Jacoby Myers or Kendrick Bourne or like who's getting the ball this week, Bill. And they make it work. I mean, and that's why they do it. You never really know who you can take out of the game. But it just doesn't seem to be great for fantasy.
Yep, the Patriot way, not the fantasy way.
That's exactly right. Patriots are reality. We care about fantasy. Just once I want somebody to ask Bill Belichick a question about fantasy football, though. Do you care that you're frustrating the fantasy football players, Bill? The stare he would give that person, like, would cut a hole in their head. I mean, like I just want to see it just to see Belichick's reaction to being asked about the impact of his coaching style on fantasy football, because the question remains, I would not volunteer for the job because you may never recover, but somebody be brave and get it done.
Right. Or I've heard the theory about their Belichick. He purposely does that, and he plays fantasy, and he knows like where Ramondre's going to get a bunch of the carries. All right, I'm putting him in my lineup. And they're like, what is this guy doing? But it's like he knows who's going to do well that week.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you wonder about coaches like that. Austin Eckler, speaking of Austin Eckler, is a perfect example of that. He's a guy who plays fantasy and is really pretty vocal about it. And there was the one week he had an injury and he was limited in practice, and he shared a screenshot of his own fantasy lineup with himself in it to say, go ahead and start me this week. I'll be good. And he scored a touchdown that week. And so you see a guy like that score 4 touchdowns, and you just wonder, he gets around the end zone. He's got a nose for the end zone a little bit more than another player, because not only does he want to score, but he got to get those fantasy points, baby.
I know, right? Yeah, he's just recently started this too. I noticed his touchdowns have spiked a lot this year. It's like, good deal, Austin. Keep playing fantasy. Keep getting those tutties, man.
Yeah, unless you're playing against him, then you don't. Then you need him to cool it. But yeah, no, it's a pretty, and especially like on a Sunday night when they're playing, you wonder, is he behind by like 20 points and he's got himself left and he just knows he's got to go off. Where if it's a noon game, the rest of my team will be fine. I'll do what I need to do. But a Sunday night situation just makes you wonder.
Yeah, I'm down by one. Throw me the touchdown. Don't hand it off. I need that one PPR point.
Yeah, that's right. Call the shovel pass, coach.
Yeah.
Speaking of trying to win matchups, sometimes you're in a pickle. You don't have your regular lineup ready to go because of injuries or bye weeks or COVID or whatever the case might be. And you need to scour the wire, or you need to go deep on your bench and decide who to start or sit. And that's what we have sleepers for. Our Week 12 sleepers. Spencer, forget Odell Beckham Jr. Spencer's got Van Jefferson on the mind.
Right. Because I still think Odell Beckham's he's not going to be all that familiar with the offense. I mean, he's still going to have plays where he has to probably take plays off, and he's still learning. I don't think he's going to magically learn the system over the 1 week, the bye week. So I'm thinking Van Jefferson still sees a lot of those deep looks, and with no Robert Woods, he could see more intermediate looks as well. So while Cooper Kupp's the clear target hog, it's like we all know. I mean, they got to shadow him, I'm sure, with the they're going to put their best guy on in there at Green Bay. I still think Cup will do well, but Jefferson's somebody that I think he's a really good sleeper. And what I have is I think it's going to be the shootout of the week there. I mean, the Rams and the Packers. I don't think it's going to disappoint like last week's, what we thought was going to be a big shootout between the Chiefs and Cowboys. I see this one. This one's going to be, I think, in the 30s on both sides.
And my sleeper of the week, I'll just call him Albert O. I'll attempt it. Albert Okwuegbunam. I butchered that. He went to Mizzou too, so I should really know. But everybody just calls him Albert O. With the Broncos, another team that really we talk about the Chargers' pass defense, and they've been killed by tight ends, and Albert O is a guy who they take deep shots with him. You talked about Bridgewater and Judy. Bridgewater actually throws for more air yards than you would think. He's in the top 10 in the NFL, and meaning basically he's going deep. He's not throwing these short little passes and letting the receiver do the work. He's going deep, and that's the type of player Albert O is. He's a big physical tight end, not quite as much of a specimen as Kyle Pitts, but that type of player. And so I think Albert O, if you need a tight end, if you're in a situation where you're, do I start Conklin or Arnold or I picked up Troutman last week, and now all those guys are gone. Like I like Albert O.
Yeah, he could do okay here. Yeah, he's a talented player. Just with Noah Fant in front of him, kind of caps his upside. But you never know. I mean, if that game ends up kind of a high scoring affair, like I'm thinking, then he could be a nice plug and play.
We do have a question here from Michael McKinney on Facebook asking if we have any suggestions for college football, college fantasy football on DraftKings. I got to admit, I've never played DFS college, but I will say just two things DFS that are hugely important anyway. Number one, pay attention to the news, because in college especially, inactives are going to be maybe a little bit harder to find news, right? That somebody's out or somebody else is limited or somebody didn't warm up. And so if you're thinking of playing a player, find the beat writers on Twitter, follow them, see if they are giving updates. If they're not giving updates, then maybe go find a TV station or something like that. I mean, especially the bigger schools, you should be able to find somebody who's updating on those injuries. And then the other thing I would say is, listen, look at the Vegas odds. Look at the over-unders. Look at the teams that are favored. Try to figure out, do the math and say, okay, the over-under on this game is 66. This team's favored by 17. That means Vegas thinks they're going to win somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 to 23 or 41 to 24. So here's a team that's going to score 40 points. Well, they have a running back who gets 80% of their carries. I mean, look at the numbers and do that math and say, well, if they're going to score 40 points in a blowout and a running back gets 80% of their carries, that's a guy you want to have. So to me, it takes more research because you do have more teams, you do have more players out there. But those are two things I would say for fantasy football in general, but especially on the college side, can give you an advantage. Do your research. Find out about injuries, suspensions, that sort of thing. Maybe something the coach said about trying to get a guy the ball more. And then and in college, that can really give you an advantage because not everybody is going to have that information like they do in the NFL. And then the other one, look at those over-unders and spreads and try to figure out who Vegas thinks is going to score the most points. Because if you're looking at New Mexico and San Diego State, not a lot of people are going to realize if San Diego State's got a running back who's going to go off, but Vegas might know, and Devin Jackson might know. He's going to be here Thursday at the book. He's always cleaning up on college football odds. But those would be my pieces of advice. Anything to add to that, Spencer?
I think you about covered it because I don't really play college fantasy, so I don't want to make suggestions on certain players. Ohio State's rolling right now. I'll say that. I would consider paying. I'm sure their price high. I would consider paying up for them. Them boys, they're killing it.
Yeah, I mean the other thing is DFS is just always about the value, and that's not just dollar value, but it is if this guy's AJ Dillon's a perfect example from the Packers for last week. Great value. But everybody knew he was a great value because he was going to be starting for Green Bay in the Aaron Jones spot. And so he was rostered in like 50% of lineups. And so it doesn't get you as far ahead as you would think in a tournament where you need to have something that somebody else doesn't have to really get ahead. College is a little bit – it's easier to do that from the standpoint of there are more players to choose. it's harder to do that from the standpoint of you've got to know where to look. And that's why I say look for news and look for those Vegas odds. It's not something you want to put together at 10:30 on a Saturday morning. You're not going to have enough time to get the information you need. But if you could do it Friday night, and then just go check Saturday morning to see if those guys are all playing and everything's good to go, that's what I would do. So preparation, research, doubly important in college football.
Yes, indeed.
Hey, if you've got questions, we're here for a couple more minutes if you want to drop them in the comments. But in the meantime, you can also tag at Spencer the Guru on Twitter or Instagram throughout the week, and Spencer will get to you, answer your question. Any good questions you got this week there, Spencer?
Yeah, I do actually on Instagram. I got one from my buddy Louis Santana. Again, he's got one for me about receivers. Who should he start as his WR3 with Amari Cooper out? Chase Claypool, Brandon Ayuk, or Elijah Moore?
Claypool, Ayuk, or Moore? I'm thinking Moore there. I like Elijah Moore and the way he's trending right now, but what do you think?
Yeah, I'm thinking Moore too. I'd keep riding the momentum. And he's got a pretty good matchup and just been somebody as he's been really dependable with multiple quarterbacks. He's shown he can get it done with multiple guys under center. Just a matchup quarterback proof guy at this point, hard to find. So I would go with him. Claypool, a little hit or miss. Ayuk, a little hit or miss. Give me more.
Yeah, that's the thing, is those guys are just not consistent, and none of them are surefire options. Obviously, and that's why you're looking for somebody. But the Jets do have a good matchup. It's not like they're not going to move the ball against Houston at all. And especially with Michael Carter out, he's probably their best weapon right now. So I do like Elijah Moore.
Right on.
All right. Well, this has been the Fantasy Roundup for Week 12, and we appreciate everybody joining us. That is Spencer the Guru. Spencer, any final thoughts as we go into Thanksgiving week?
Oh, man, I would say just, take advantage of those good matchups. I have my matchups column out Thursday morning. Have a couple of the Thursday games highlighted in there. Make sure to check that out, which matchups to target, which ones to avoid, etc. Certain players that could pop out, and this is a stretch run, y'all. Make sure to keep up with the injuries. The injury reports are just so vital these days. It's just way more than usual. So just keep tabs on all that, and we'll keep this train rolling, y'all.
Yeah, information makes you the king in fantasy football. That is for sure. And hey, just fair warning, I know it's a holiday. Set the lineups, especially if you got a Bear or a Lion that you're playing, a DeAndre Swift or a David Montgomery, or a Cowboys player, Raiders player. I mean, you got to set those lineups on Thursday, or else you could definitely miss out. One more question from Michael. Online Sportsbook looking like it's going to be the new year before we get that. That's not for certain, but that's what it looks like based on my latest information. Online sportsbooks probably sometime in January. And that's a great segue. Thank you, Michael, because we do want to remind you that our sponsor, Caesars Sportsbook, you can download that sportsbook by going to NOLA.com/Caesars. You can do that now. I know it's a long way to wait for actually betting, but it does allow you to look at the odds anytime. You can actually put money in there. And so then the minute that we get word that it's live and we can bet, you can just open up the app. You've already got it downloaded, and you're going to get a $100 bonus. There may be more bonuses to come when they launch, but you can claim yours right now by going to NOLA.com/Caesars. So we invite you to do that at any time. Help support bet.NOLA.com. And with that, we'll sign off. Hey, we'll be with you next on Thursday afternoon. At the Book on Thanksgiving. I will be at Harrah's Casino, New Orleans, to preview the Saints-Bills game that night. The Cowboys-Raiders will be going on during the show. We're going to be live at 4 o'clock, and we will, of course, talk about the huge weekend in college football and the NFL as well, but especially a lot of talk about the Saints' desperation game against the Buffalo Bills that night. So we'll see you then at 4 o'clock right on these same social media channels. Until then, for Spencer the Guru, I'm Zach Ewing. We'll see you next time.